So I'm Jaana Woiceshyn. I'm the author of How to Be Profitable and Moral, a rational egoist approach to business. I'm a professor at the University of Calgary where I teach business ethics, and I also blog about business ethics related issues on a weekly basis. I wrote the book because I had been teaching business ethics for more than 20 years, and I didn't really have, well, I had gotten all these ideas teaching ethics, and I realized that there's something missing because the alternative that's typically presented to business students and also business people, that you have two choices. You go when you maximize profits, and you have to exploit other people in the process. So it's a win-lose situation. Or you are moral, but you can't be profitable, because being moral means that you have to sacrifice yourself. You have to give up profits, because that's just, too greedy, and it harms other people if you're profitable. And my book presents what I consider the right alternative for business, which is you can be profitable and moral at the same time without exploiting other people and really maximizing your profits of your business. I'm not going to start telling them, okay, you got to be self-interested and do that. I say, well, let's look at what the alternatives are. And we really start with the idea of, what are values? What are the kinds of things that business pursues? Like, what does it mean to pursue profits? So we first become to understand what are values and why they're necessary for people to pursue, so that you can survive and flourish and your business can be profitable. And then we talk about what are the means to those values, and we talk about virtues and principles. In other words, what kinds of actions do you need to take in order to reach your values, including profits? And once that is clear, and also the idea that we don't automatically know how we should act. We don't know. We have no automatic knowledge about how to maximize profits or how to achieve any other value. So that's what I start with, and then we start looking at what the approaches are, like how could you go about it? And I do start with the rational egoistic approach, which is basically Ayn Rand's philosophy, or Ayn Rand's ethics, objectivist ethics, and how does that apply to business? And then we do this, and then we look at the alternatives. The approach that selfishness means exploitation of other people, or that you should not be selfish, you should be selfless and sacrifice yourself. And the students really come to realize that if they want to be in business, if they want to be profitable, they really don't have alternatives except to pursue their rational self-interest, which means pursue profits, trade value for value with your employees, your customers, your shareholders, and don't exploit anybody in the process. And in my book, I really go at it by looking at how do you actually do it? Like, what are the principles and how do they apply to actual business? The main principles, I would say from a business perspective, and this is something that I have not identified. These are Ayn Rand's ideas and principles. I'm just showing how you apply them to business. So I would say first one is that you have to be focused on reality. You have to recognize what the facts out there. You can't ignore the fact that you have competitors there. You can't ignore what customers need or want. You can't ignore whether your employees are productive or not. So you have to be focused on facts and reality. The second one, because we're talking about business, is to be productive. And that virtue, Ayn Rand called it productiveness, is really the process of creating material values, which business is about. So either you're productive, you produce values, or you die. You can't really be in a business. And the third principle would be what Ayn Rand called the trader principle, which is you exchange value for value. You create a material value, whether it's a good or service, and you sell it to your customers, and they want to buy it, they want to pay for it. You trade value for value with your employees as well. because they offer, whatever they are good at to you, but you, of course, have to compensate them for that. You're training value. So this is a win-win situation. The shareholders give their money to you, they invest in your company, and you provide a return to them on the long term. And so that's what business is really about. It's trading value for value, but you have to produce before you can trade, and you can't produce unless you're focused on facts and reality. Well, Ayn Rand emphasizes, if we come to ethics again, one important principle is independent thinking or independence. But that, of course, does not mean that you cannot work with other people. It just means that you do have to think firsthand for yourself. You can't blindly follow someone else. You can't blindly obey orders. And you cannot contribute to teamwork unless every member of the team is an independent contributor, because otherwise there's nothing to innovate new ideas, to work on, to create new products, unless there's that independence. So independence and teamwork are not in conflict. They align really well. Businesses in energy, well, hot topic, I guess, in business and energy would be what kind of sources of energy should be used. And of course, the prevailing, popular notion is that fossil fuel-based energy, so energy from coal and oil and natural gas, is creating catastrophic climate change that's destroying the planet. And I think that's a huge issue for the companies, especially in my home city, Calgary, where a lot of these types of companies are based. Versus, well, should we just, resort to alternative, unreliable forms of energy that are more expensive to produce, so that we could save the planet but diminish, human ability to survive and flourish. So that's a big issue in business and energy at the moment. And what does egoism say about that? It says, well, human flourishing requires energy. It requires dependable energy, affordable energy, and scalable energy. And that, at the moment, only comes from the fossil fuels. And nuclear as well, but we don't have that developed to the same extent. So fossil fuels are indispensable, and they're totally moral to produce and use for the benefit of those businesses and also, of course, their customers. So the Marxist notion would be that the capitalist is the exploiter that extracts his profits from the backs of their employees. And that, of course, is another kind of a myth, that again, that there's an exploiter and then there's somebody who's being exploited. It comes back to the same principle, the trader principle. You're trading. You hire people who are contributing, their skills and ability towards your business, but they can't do it for free. They want to live, and they want to do something that's interesting for them, and they can also, earn a salary by doing that. It's a trade. So, of course, a business owner wants to pay salary that's competitive in the market. If they try to pay less than what would be so-called market wage or market salary, they would lose the good people. They would go and work for their competitors. If they try to pay more, they can't make a profit. So there's this, market is a great mechanism to determine what the right price is. But of course, it is in a business owner's or manager's best interest to compensate good employees well, because they contribute to the profitability of the business. Yes, it's not, the alternative is not having the kind of current mixed economy we have, and then no government at all, which would be anarchy. Government is crucially important for humans to be able to live together peacefully and have that kind of win-win arrangement. Government's only role is to protect people's freedom. In other words, to protect people's individual rights. And that also applies to business. So when I say individual rights, I mean the classical rights as defined in the American Constitution. So right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. So government's only role is to make sure that nobody violates those rights, in other words, initiates physical force or fraud against others. And everything else, no regulation, no government subsidies, no tariff protection, all of those kinds of things, should be out. We should just have a system of capitalism where people's rights are recognized and they're protected by the government, and all property is privately owned. I just would recommend people checking out, my blog. It's profitableandmoral.com, and you can find the weekly blog there and more information about my book.